Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ann, and it is so good to be back. I took a very long hiatus, really just to work on some things that have come up, life stuff, school, all the things. But, I felt like God has been calling me back for a while now. So I am excited to deliver this video, and as you can see on the title, it's about a celebration, but it's also got the word waiting in it. So we're going to talk about, what those things mean, especially for you in this season. Of course, you always pray and ask God, is this word for you? Take it back to Him, pray about it, of course, and then you will know what God is saying to you. But yeah, school, life, all the things. It's been a wild ride over this past few months or so, and it's exciting to get back in the Word on, I guess, a more regular basis. So I'm in school right now. I'm getting my PhD in psychology and theology. So I would find myself, honestly, sometimes just like rolling over and like thanking God, doing a little bit of praise and worship, and then going to do my studies. Or I would have something that I needed to do and it was super early, so I would hop out of bed, but I would spend time with Him, later. But I would find that the mornings for me was when I really needed that time for God to help me and like direct my day. So spending time with Him in the mornings is really good for me, and I'm definitely getting back into the swing of things now, which has been good in prayer. It's been good. So we are doing a video today on the topic of waiting to accelerate. Waiting to accelerate. Raise your hand if you like to wait. Yeah, no. But I was in church, so this year I am trying to do better with self-care, right? I work in the mental health field, and sometimes following your own advice can be tough. So for this year, I do 2 things per week for myself. One, that is I joined a morning Bible study on Tuesdays. It's like from 9:30 to 11:30. At 9:30, we do our actual Bible study, and then at 10:30 we go for our lecture. So it's just all combined. It's really great. We have a book that we go through. It's just all laid out. It's really great to have a plan. Also, if you're gonna grow your intimacy with God, get to know the Word more, have a plan. So there were also times when I just sat down and I was like, oh, like what am I reading today? Or I'll just read through this scripture, or I'll just do this or that. But it really helps to have a plan, so you can kind of build upon the stories and just different things that God is saying to you, specific for you in your season. But today I'm going to talk about waiting to accelerate. So I joke about waiting, right? But that is, for a lot of people, just uncomfortable. There's a lot that goes on in the time that you hear the promise made from God, and then for it to come to pass or fruition, right? Then there's that gap in there, and it's like, what is happening in this gap? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What are the things that are happening while we are waiting to accelerate? So yesterday I saw this truck. So one of the things that I have been praying for is for acceleration, just because I feel like the spirit of delay has been on some things in my life that should have happened now, and God called that to my attention so that I could be alert and start praying against some things. So I've been praying for acceleration. And one of the scriptures that I was praying for was is 1 Kings 18, and the scriptures are from 41 to 46, And if you are not familiar, that's about when Prophet Elijah, he prays for rain, right? And in this, so they just, in this scene, they just finished really taking down this idol that the people had of Baal, right? And they were on Mount Carmel, and Elijah was like, okay, you call on your God, let's see what he can do. I'm gonna call on my God, let's see what he can do. And of course, Baal, their God, did nothing, right? Their idol. And then he called on God, the God who answers by fire, right? To burn up the firewood. He even let the other team wet the wood, everything. Like, he just, like, all the stuff. Or maybe I'm saying that wrong. But anyways, the point is, our God, the one and only true God, showed up, and then the people believed. So, in this, like, moving forward, Elijah prays for rain, right? So I'm going to read, or just kind of tell you about it. So he's praying for rain. Don't see anything, right? So it says, then he said to his servant, and this is verse 43, says, then he said to his servant, go and look out toward the sea. The servant went and looked, then returned to Elijah and said, I don't see anything. I didn't see anything. So, right, he went 7 times, right? So probably we would have given up probably the first or second time, maybe even the third or fourth time, maybe even the 5th or 6th time. But he went back 7 times to see if there was like any sign of rain. So 7 times Elijah told him to go and look. Finally, the 7th time he told his servant, I see a little cloud about the size of a man's hand. You have to be looking really, 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 really hard to see a cloud the size of a man's hand in the sky. Come on. And so it says, then Elijah shouted, hurry to Ahab and tell him, climb into your chariot and go back home. If you don't hurry, the rain will stop you. And soon the sky was black with clouds. A heavy wind brought a terrific rainstorm, and Ahab left quickly for Jerusalem. Jezreel. Then the Lord gave special strength to Elijah. He tucked his cloak into his belt and ran ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to the entrance of Jezreel. Right, so what I've been praying for is for God to give me special strength to accelerate and really just catapult me into my future and like what he has for me. Because like I talked about, like I really feel like the spirit of delay was on me. So I've been praying over that among some other things that I've been praying for a while now. And yesterday I was coming from getting something to eat at a local salad place, and I saw this truck and it said accelerated, and I was like, okay, God, because sometimes I can be so in my mind that I miss the signs. And as we know, God speaks to us in all kinds of ways, so we really have to be mindful and really alert at how God is speaking to us specifically, what we understand, what we know God is truly saying to us through different things that he places throughout of our day. So really excited about that. And sometimes, when we talk about like the 7 times that, Elijah told him to go back and look, right? So this means that he was waiting. This means that he was having faith. This means that he, persevered through his unbelief. Like, look, I don't see it. You know, there is no man's hand. Like, he kept going back and back and back. And sometimes the process, right? The process that he was in. And I really wanted to highlight also to the story of Joseph, and Joseph with the coat of many colors, which starts in Genesis chapter 37, and then going to really the end of Genesis, where, you know, we find out like all the things that happened to him was really, it really ended up benefiting him. It was used for good. All the evil that was done turned into good. So I'll highlight a few things from that, because that is also what we are studying in Bible study. And it's some really great things that are in there too, just about like showing favoritism, jealousy, how God sends us ahead or sends us to these different places. And so how God prepares us a lot of the time is just does not look like how we feel like we should be prepared. Like when I wanted to be prepared for marriage, how God prepared me, it was not how I thought it should look like at all. So it was really some getting used to things that he was taking me through for those times where he needed me. It's almost like that wax on, wax off, like, you know, in Karate Kid, he's telling him to like wax on the car, wax off this, you know, wax off the wax. And the student, he is just like confused. Daniel, I think that's his name, Danielson. He's confused. It's like, how is this teaching me karate? And then he starts to challenge him. He's like, wax on, wax off. You know, he's like, oh, shoot, you know, like I know some things, right? And that's how it is for us when God is preparing us. We don't see it in the moment, right? We don't see it when we have to go back and look one time, two times, keep believing. Oh, we don't see it three times. Oh, I don't see it the fourth time, God. I don't see it the fifth time. I don't see it the sixth time. And sometimes what happens is that we give up before we are able to see the blessing. So it helps definitely to make sure that we are in the Word, me included, right? So that we know that God's promises, they do not fail, right? We know that Numbers 23:19 says that God is not a man that he should lie, nor is he the son of man that he should have to repent, right? God, tomorrow is history for God. I heard my pastor say that. Tomorrow is history for God. He has an eternal view. He already knows what's going to happen. So when he promises us something, he's not like guessing, like, oh, I think it could happen. Or, you know, well, let me check. You know, these are the things that he knows. What our job is to do, even though it is super hard, right? The waiting, to then accelerate. It is super hard. But if we are faithful and we continue to believe in God and we continue to persevere and know that it's building us truly, because how many times have I prayed for something that I was not ready for? I would have squandered my blessing. If I were married back then, oh my God, like I would have totally been a horrible wife. I'm just gonna be so super real with you. That just would not have been something I excelled at. So it was good, you know, for like with the preparation that God is giving me. So, waiting to accelerate though. So let's go to the story of Joseph just really quickly. We're going to talk about chapter 37, like I said, all the way to the end of Genesis. But we start with a young man. He's around 17 at the time. And he is known for being his dad's favorite, right? Among his brothers, like dad didn't hide it. Like he made him a coat of many colors, like beautiful. I mean, all the things, like it just was not hidden. So of course you can already imagine that there's some animosity, some jealousy, you know, from his brothers, right? Of not liking him. And then to put gasoline on the fire, I guess you would say, Jacob has these two amazing dreams. One, the first dream, and I have to just like make sure that I'm telling you right, but the first dream is when I can't find it right now, but the first dream is when he had this vision of him holding up this beautiful, like stealthy, strong grain, and everybody else's grain was wilted, bad, and they were all bowing down to him. And he told his brothers about that. And you know, of course, they're already mad, and so they're like, "Oh, so you're gonna be in charge, and we're gonna bow down to you?" Not happening. Then the second time he had a dream that like the sun, the moon, and the stars, like everything was just bowing down to him again. And so he went and told his brothers again. I don't know if I would have been that brave, honestly. But he told his brothers, and his dad was there to hear. And his dad kind of rebuked him a little bit, like, we're gonna be bound down to you? Like, are we serving you? Like, what's going on? So he was really kind of confused, the dad was. But anyway, fast forward, you know, he sent the brothers out to do some work. And then he asked Joseph, his favorite, to go check on his brothers, right? So his brothers at that time were plotting to kill him. He was like, what's not about to happen is that we bow down to him and that we serve him. Just not happening. So they plot to kill him, right? They plot to kill the baby. 17 years old. Anyways, so I believe it was Reuben who stood up and he was like, well, let's not maybe kill him. Maybe let's just throw him into a cistern, which is, you know, like a deep well, I believe. And then here come some Ishmaelites, and they are on camels. And so Judah, I believe, steps up at that time and he says, okay, well, let's sell him into slavery. Like, let's not kill him. Let's not do all these things. Let's just sell him into slavery. We don't want this blood on our hands. So they sold him into slavery, and then they went back and told his dad that he had been killed, and they put blood on his the coat of many colors that his dad had given to him, Joseph, his favorite son. So now Joseph is on the auction block, right? He gets noticed by Pharaoh. He goes home with Pharaoh. He serves Pharaoh. He's doing all these things, right? Mind you, he's not complaining. He's not doing it. He's just serving because he's like, okay, I know God said, right? How many of us, for sure, me included, will get very discouraged about, or has gotten discouraged about, what it looks like versus what God told us it's going to be. Knowing that he is all powerful, knowing that he is mighty, knowing that he, in the blink of an eye, he can make anything happen. Yeah, let's take a little break, a little pause on that one, right? So during this time, he's serving the Pharaoh. But then, so God gave him favor to do things well, so he could, you know, be with the Pharaoh. But wouldn't you know it? Here comes Pharaoh's wife. And the Bible talks about like how handsome Joseph was. So what, he's still a minor at that point, but you know, maybe not, I don't know. He's probably grown up a little bit. But she takes notice of him. She keeps advancing herself towards him. And he's like not interested. One, he's just such an amazing example and a man of God. He's like resisting, like, no, I know this is wrong. You know, my master has been really good to me. He wants to honor God. And so she gets mad one night. I think she had just had it. Like, okay, fine. So she rips off his clothes. He's running through, the grounds. They catch him. Basically, she accuses him of like assaulting her. He gets thrown into jail. Bam. Again, God, this is not what this is supposed to be. This is not what it looks like. This waiting period is crazy. I am supposed to be, in charge. Everybody is supposed to be bowing to me right now. My grain, God, what about the grain? What about the sun, the moon, and stars? Like, what about all that stuff, God? But he's in jail now. And God still gives him favor. God still gives him favor even when he is in jail, where he's kind of running things too. So then, fast forward, here comes two men. One is a cupbearer and one escapes me now. I think there's like a baker and then someone else. But anyway, they have these dreams. And they don't understand what it means. They have these two dreams and they don't understand what it means. But Joseph does. I was about to say Jacob, but Joseph does. He, through the power of God, can interpret their dreams. So, the cupbearer is like, oh, thank you so much. When I get out, because basically he said he was gonna get out, he was gonna live, like things were gonna go great for him. He was like, when I get out, I'm gonna remember you. I'm gonna tell Pharaoh, come get you, all these things, you'll be good. 6 months pass, a year, 2 years passes, 2 whole years passes. And the only reason that the cupbearer remembered him is because Pharaoh had these dreams that he could not figure out, right? He had these dreams of how the skinny cows, they ate up the fat cows, right? And the skinny grain ate up the big and plump grain, right? So he's having these dreams. He's like, what is this? Like, what does this even mean? So he goes to, his usual sources for them to interpret the dream, but they cannot. So the cupbearer's like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I forgot about this dude named Joseph who he could interpret dreams. My bad, basically. My bad for not remembering him. So the Pharaoh calls for Joseph. And he, of course, gives God the glory. Always giving God the glory. No matter how long he sat in jail, all the things he went through, wrongly accused, all of that. He still gave God the glory. He said, I can't interpret your dreams, but God can. So through his power, through the power of God, Joseph did interpret his dreams. And coming to find out that they had a famine coming in the land. And that there was going to be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. But what they should do is save 1/5 of the grain during the 7 years of plenty to help them during the 7 years that they would not have anything, that they would be going through the famine. So Pharaoh was very pleased with this, like, oh my God. So they do all of these things, guys. And so even though Joseph had to wait all this time for these things to happen, it was like when he got to his position, right? And I'll kind of go through all of the things that they gave him. It talks about it in Genesis 41, right? We went through from Genesis 37 to 41. You can go back and read it. But to get more specifics of the story, but he just talks about all the things that he now has just for being that discerning and wise, a man in whom is the Spirit of God. So although Pharaoh was not didn't truly recognize God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus and all the things, he knew that Joseph had some power and he knew there was something different. So listen up as we now reach the acceleration part, right? He went through the waiting. Now it's like acceleration. And guys, honestly, if we look at the lives of some of these people, like I know, we see what the wealth and the different things that they have now. However, there were some times and periods where maybe they started, like people who are wealthy now, they started a project, it failed. They started another project, it failed. I remember Priscilla Shirer telling her story about things that kind of failed and then God accelerated her. You just look at anybody in sports, right? We always use, maybe, I don't know, Michael Jordan or Oprah or whomever. There's so many people that have started this way. There was a waiting period, a growing period, and then they accelerated, right? What I think the misconception is that, when God promises something, we just like take off like right then. But we also have to wait a little bit, and that's okay. That's okay. We're growing, we're learning. Wax on, wax off. So to honor Joseph, Pharaoh gave Joseph a signet ring, a seal used to stamp Pharaoh's approval on important documents. Second in command, y'all. Clothed him with fine linen, put a gold chain around his neck, made him second in command. We already said that. Had the people pay him homage, so people were what? Yes, he was in charge, bowing down to him. Changed his name to, y'all know these biblical names, Zaphnath Paneah, which means, the meaning is unknown. Possibly nourisher of the two lands, or the living one, or God speaks and he lives. Gave him a wife, he had kids. I mean, like all of this just happened like overnight, right? So, the story, the lesson in this story is so many lessons, right? One, favoritism towards your kids. Probably not a good idea. I know that we love them differently, but even if we had like one child who's wayward, one child who does everything right, we still love them both. It may be harder to love the other one. They need more prayer, different things like that, but we still love them. We still, embrace them and not single them out, because that does cause strife in families today. The process that we think we should go through is not the process that God knows that we should go through, right? Our view is this, God's view is eternal. So we have to also think about those things. Yes, he knows what we're gonna need 20, 30, 40 years down the road. He brings in things into our lives, people into our lives. He takes people out sometimes, There were friends that I had to give up. Weren't bad people, smart, amazing, but they just, for my season and what God was taking me into, they could not come. Also, waiting with humility. Waiting is not hard. I mean, waiting is not easy, is what I meant to say, but waiting with humility and waiting with reverence, also waiting with a good heart posture, waiting with faith. Even though, sometimes, it may waver, but you keep going back that 1, that 2, that 3, that 4, that 5, that 6, that 7 time, right? It's so small, but it was just like how, God, who was praying in the Bible for 21 days, and on the 21st day is when his prayer got answered. And what if he would have stopped praying on the 20th day, you guys? Come on. Like, we have to, I know in this new time, we like for things to happen fast. I click, I order this, it's here in like 2 hours, it's here in an hour, it's here tomorrow, I want this now. This has to happen now because, I'm running out of time, but God is outside of time. And just in the blink of an eye, like he did for Joseph, all of his dreams came true, all of the things that came true. So yes, his brothers did have to come back to the land to ask him for food, and they ended up, bowing down, and they didn't know who he was, of course, but his dream came true because God cannot lie. So in our times of despair, and when it just does not look like what God promised us, we have to continue to believe and make sure we're reading our word, so then we can see stories like this where his brothers did have to come back to him for food, where they did have to bow to them, where they didn't have any grain, they didn't have any food, but then Joseph was second in command, so they had no choice but to come back to him. And then he was still not bitter towards his brothers. Still not bitter. How many of us could do that? I'm not sure I could either. I imagine, because of how they describe Joseph's character, that he spent a lot of time with God to not lash out at his brothers, right? Because he could have easily had them, thrown into jail for a long time, right? He did some things in between, but he could have done anything he wanted. He was in charge. But instead, he honored God. He honored himself. He honored his brothers. He got to see his dad again. He got to hang out with his brothers again. And the Bible talks about how he wept and he was sad, and he just was honestly just happy to see them. Man, I don't know if I would be happy to see the people who plotted to take my life. But because he knew that God had sent him ahead, because God knew that there was going to be a famine in the land, and he needed Joseph to be there and prepare for what was coming. God is preparing you right now for the acceleration. You are waiting to accelerate. Do not get discouraged in the wait. I know it's hard sometimes. Even this story, which talks about all the evil that was done, and that God worked it out for his good. And I'm going to try to find the exact scripture at the end of Genesis. I was in 1 Kings. But it all, guys, works out in the end. Someone was giving a speech the other night for training that I was a part of. And they asked, everybody, what was their definition of faith. And, of course, people gave, the answer from Hebrews. Things I cannot see, right? I'm hoping for the things that I cannot see. I know that they're coming to pass. But he just kind of said, it's already done. If God promised it to you, it's done. It's a done deal. And let's see, it says, and I'm in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, or maybe I'll back up to 19. It says, but Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your young children and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for all good. And he saved a lot of people. God is preparing you for something great. So don't be discouraged. Keep going, right? I'm talking to myself here. Keep going and do not give up on the promise, because that is exactly what the enemy wants you to do. He cannot steal God's promise, but he can make you forfeit it by not believing, by not trying, and not persevering through the wait. That is all that I have for you today. Waiting to accelerate. Until next time, I pray that you have the most amazing day or night whenever you are watching this video.